Hello and welcome to the latest episode of It Stinks, the Critic podcast. I'm your host, Brian Rubinow, and today we are looking at the Season 1 finale of The Critic. Season 1, Episode 13, A Pig Boy and His Dog. And here to go along with me on this journey for this episode is filmmaker, the current film news editor for Arrow in the Head, and a video editor for JoBlo horror videos. It's Damion Damaske. Hey, Damion.
Hey, I'm glad to be on here. So, just the history of this show. So this is like before it moves to Fox, correct? Because this is originally an ABC show.
Yes, it started on ABC. There's even kind of a meta joke in this episode about ABC.
Like home improvement and stuff. Yeah, there's a big home improvement like thread throughout this whole thing, which is kind of weird because the show I didn't quite remember and we'll go into it, but like seeing it was kind of surprising, being like, oh yeah, I kind of remember this because it was a show I watched kind of sometimes begrudgingly.
And I definitely would have been one of those people that was just tuning in for The Critic, so I probably would have just caught the end of Home Improvement because that show never really held any interest for me.
Yeah, it was always bad. Yeah, I think kids have better taste than people like to realize. Even then, I was like, this is boring and dumb. And the grunts were annoying. It was just, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Did you ever play a video game of that? The video game? Have you heard of that?
I actually have. I played it just on an emulator. Just when I heard that a Home Improvement Super Nintendo game existed, I was like, oh my God, I've got to try that. And yeah, it's pretty terrible.
They start pretty big too, because the first level is like because this came in the mid-90s, so it was a dinosaur level. Is the first, because you played the game, yeah. But like, it's for people who don't know, like Tim Allen's character, I forget his name. His name actually, it's not Allen. It's Tim something.
Taylor. Tim the Toolman Taylor.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. And so he has a show in the sitcom, and then so the video game is literally him losing. He actually stops the live show, being like, "Oh, I'm going to go do it at the studios." And so the first studio he goes to is a dinosaur level, which is like doesn't make any sense because he's like a public access thing. He hasn't. I don't think he's like adjacent to like Universal Studios or something. Whatever. that's the least of that game's problems.
Yeah, I don't think I ever even like bothered to get past the first level in that game. I was done with it very quickly. It's
like, oh, I get the point. This is a fun, kitschy thing. We're done. Let's move on.
And it's pretty standard. You just run, jump. I think you have like a nail gun that you attack with.
Well, it's like I saw some Let's Plays of it, and literally like it has different. Your tools do different things. You have like a grappling hook, and you have like a jackhammer one, and apparently it's like Sonic. Apparently, like you collect nuts, and if you get hit, you lose. Like that's your life.
Okay.
So, and I think but they don't explain that very well. So, like most Let's Players I see watch, because I've seen multiple Let's Players play this game because I have no life. Quarantine's killing me.
I wonder if we can find a speed run of it at GDQ.
Probably, honestly, it's becoming one of those kind of cult games, kind of like Bubsy 3D or. Trying to think of some other like really terrible ones. It was Sonic 06. Some of those like legendarily bad games.
I remember one of the best bad games I saw at GDQ during like their whole like bad games block or whatever that they always have is I want to say a Chinese made game based on the movie Titanic.
Oh, Titanic?
Yeah, Titanic. It's Titanic spelled with an E instead of an A, and it's like it's an 8-bit side-scrolling beat-em-up where you play as both Jack and Rose. You can depending on the level.
Yeah, I've seen that. Unfortunately, I saw it on a YouTuber who shall not be named anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, which sucks, but that's where the Titanic thing came from. Like, oh no, I probably shouldn't reference that guy anymore because he's a Nazi.
Oh dang! All right, yeah.
I don't watch the channel anymore. On that note, speaking of the Critic,
So we've already touched on maybe the nerdiest subjects possible. Speedruns.
We're talking about the Critic, man. It's going to go pretty nerdy.
So this episode, A Pig Boy and His Dog. I'll just read the synopsis here. Inspired by her son's portly figure, Eleanor writes a children's book called The Fat Little Pig, and Jay becomes a laughingstock. That It's a pretty good
Pretty much the
summation of what
plot.
happens here. Yeah.
Well, it's one thing I noticed is that because it's called the pig and the dog. I didn't really. And what's interesting is that the A plot and the B plot don't meet each other until like the very end of the episode.
Yeah,
which is,
I have a lot of thoughts on that.
Yeah,
like,
it's I'm not gonna lie, like this episode I liked it because I like all the Critic episodes. I've seen all the Critic episodes. And even this episode, like I didn't really remember it that well, but like there's like elements of it. Like I remember laughing at this, you know, kind of like the Simpsons episodes, because like it's the same. Like it was like the showrunners originally showrunners on Simpsons, and I remember there'd be like segments of the Simpsons, or like I remember this little joke, but I don't remember like where the joke comes from. You know what I mean?
which joke?
Oh, just in general, where there'll be like segments.
Okay.
You like quote a Simpsons reference.
Oh, right.
I don't remember what, because like their A plots and B plots are so also kind of like this, a little bit disconnected. And but I remember like certain things like the owl transition that we'll get to later. Some of Franklin's jokes. I remember being like, oh, I don't remember like from this episode, but I remember like remembering that triggering that memory. But the fact that it focused on his mother was kind of disappointing because she's probably like one of my least favorite characters in the series.
Yeah, I mean, she's definitely one of the meanest.
Well, to me is fine. Duke was one of my favorite characters in that series. He's probably my second or third favorite character, and he's like probably worse than her. But so it has nothing to do with like morality. And Mr. Burns is one of my favorite characters in The Simpsons. And he's worse than Eleanor. So I mean, like in that sense.
I mean, yeah, it's okay to have a mean character as long as you can make them sympathetic and
or funny.
Yeah,
because Mr. Burns is not funny at all, and I'd argue neither is Duke, really. So.
Oh, really? I think Duke's hilarious.
Oh, he is. I mean, he's not sympathetic.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah, he's hilarious.
Yeah, but I don't think they really managed to do that with Eleanor in this episode, unfortunately.
Yeah, and, I think what's funniest is when it really is making fun of the kind of blue blood 1%er thing, which is like, it's like, we should fire the poor into the sun. We have the technology. That stuff was funny. Or I really did like them driving Miss Daisy. Homage, where he's just like, he goes like Malcolm H, and he's just like, you won't survive the revolution, and just like runs off. That was really funny, especially now how prescient that joke was.
And there's also a very prescient joke about the police later when Jay basically the chief of police shoots the glass bottle out of Jay's hand.
It's like, oh, how dare you? Oh, Mr. Chief of Police. Yeah, that was really funny. The critics, surprisingly, because I've sometimes talk, I know your podcast sometimes talks about like the changing mores of like comedy and how things have kind of changed since like especially early 90s. And you realize this show is like, 25 years old. I mean, this is a quarter of a century old. This is it's you don't think that because I think we're both born. I was born in '88, so I think the '90s is like 10 years ago, perpetually.
Yeah. I was born in '85, so yeah, I'm also very nostalgic for the 90s.
Yeah, and but it's still funny when you watch these shows and realize how prescient they are in a lot of things. I remember there's a joke, not in this episode, but probably earlier, I think it's a season 1 episode, where it's they have a high-speed chase at Jay and a producer, and they're like, oh, the cops are like, whatever, and then it shows like Spike Lee type. Was it Spike Lee, or was it just like an archetype of like...
Yeah, it was just a random black person just driving.
Yeah, no, it was a director. He was like earlier in the episode, and then but it's based on Spike Lee. And it's like, a black guy going the speed limit. Let's go stop him. So I'm like, so the critic, even these shows were because it's like right after Rodney King, a little bit, like a couple years after that. So it still is in the public consciousness, I think, to a certain extent, but it's still there. I mean, one of the craziest things I remember seeing is a clip from The Simpsons. That's been kind of got passed around where she's like talking about like when Marge becomes a cop, and then Lisa's like, well, isn't actually what you're perpetuating this violent system that maybe we could use to instead have public works, and she kind of talks about kind of the current defund the police type thing of like they bring nonviolent people to come in to help. And Marge is just like, oh, here's McGruff, this crime dog. Hey, Lisa, take a bite out of crime. It's like, but that stuff was in the air, I think, even earlier than we think. I mean, if you look at comedy through certain lenses that are definitely more, and there's a lot of fat jokes, for instance, in this episode.
Sure, yeah.
That are a little bit, that are very, very dated. Some of them are funny. I'm not, but some of them are very, very dated. As a big person, I'm allowed to laugh at it, I think.
No, it is kind of a time capsule in that sense. Just like in the last episode 12, Madeline and we talked a lot about how that episode kind of makes a joke about political correctness. Mm-hmm. Because like around the time of that episode, like the whole PC culture thing was like a brand new thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was like the first time people thought about like, oh yeah, I guess you should say congressperson instead of congressman, or, mail carrier instead of mailman, that sort of thing. Admittedly, this episode was, I think, funnier to me on a rewatch. Like, I remember like when I got the DVD and I just like marathoned the whole series, like this episode and episode 12 were the ones that really made me think like, oh God, what was going on here? But no, like watching it again, there's some really great stuff in here. So
good lines and stuff, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so let's get into it.
Do the actual episode.
Yeah. So we begin with like a Disney movie parody, like a Pinocchio.
I really liked. This is like one of those things where I remember this segment vividly, but I didn't remember like what episode it was part of. Yeah,
and there's, you know what? I think we. Oh wait, I either we haven't gotten into it yet, or I somehow passed it over. But in another Critic episode, there's a Nightmare Before Christmas parody where they actually do.
Is it stop motion?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah,
stop
I remember
motion
that.
animation.
I forget that. They did a couple of them. Yeah, because they also did the Lion King one, where wasn't it like Howard Stern was the Lion King?
Yeah,
like
but yeah, we get Pinocchio here, where basically we reveal that it's actually Jay and Jeremy in the theater watching it, because Jeremy's doing the voice of the cockroach instead of Jiminy Cricket.
G'day, mate. I'm Bogart the Roach. I'm going to tell you the story of Pinocchio, a wooden puppet who wanted to be a real boy. When you make a real big blunder, have a pint and then go chunder.
My favorite part of this segment was the Robin Williams as the beige fairy.
Oh, I just flew in from San Francisco, and boy, are my Judy Garland records tired. For shame, you have defiled a child's cartoon with evil thoughts. Captain, I am getting some evil thoughts.
Evil thoughts. Spock, get that dribble out of your pants.
Just Robin Williams doing his like really rapid fire like impressions and stuff.
What's funny is it's very little parody on that particular part. Because I remember
right.
Robin Williams did, or might have been when Dan Castellaneta, who actually played Homer, actually did the cartoons or the series or the sequel. But yeah, there was definitely, I know Robin Williams did the third Aladdin movie. I think that was like with King of Thieves or whatever, where like Aladdin meets his dad. But there were jokes in there that seemed very similar. Even some of the Will Smith stuff in the live action where he's like duplicating himself, and it's just like, it's kind of funny because it's funny because I think this is the first movie had just come out. But then to see that like that kind of like life imitates art, where like actually some of that stuff they actually did later on, with duplicating people and things like that. I thought the funniest thing was Arnold Schwarzenegger, because that was like before Mr. Freeze, where he got paid like $25 million to not barely be in the movie
to make terrible ice puns.
Yeah, and like apparently, on a little Batman tangent, like apparently like none of the actors really talked to Arnold Schwarzenegger. They just have a stand-in for like stunts and stuff like that. So literally they would just film Arnold Schwarzenegger's like close-ups and his like medium shots or like that, and then he would go home and then
That's a pretty nice gig.
And then George Clooney and Chris O'Donnell would just talk to a stand-in for the reverse shots, which is kind of ridiculous. But yeah, that is funny that again, there's all these things kind of prescient to a certain extent.
Oh yeah.
So this is I would say this is probably one of the more highlights of the episode. I think this is it goes back to sort of because I was clocking it like literally the first coming attractions, his show That didn't happen until like the third act, until after the third commercial break. And so this is like the only... They might have done this. Honestly, the scene's so disconnected to the rest of the episode that it feels like... Because it really is only... Because he goes to the premiere and he meets the dog after he goes outside the premiere. That's basically what plot-wise what it leads to. But really, the entire like first 5 minutes is so disconnected from the rest of the episode that it feels like it's like they're in the writer's room like, oh shit, we have this whole story with his mom, but we don't have any like film parodies until like literally 20 minutes or like 18 19 minutes in the episode.
And Jeremy is in that opening scene, but he doesn't come back for the rest of the episode. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Come on, give us more Jeremy. That's a great character.
I love it. Yeah, he's one of my favorite characters. I like him a lot. And then they also have a funny animation joke where it's so cheap animation. They don't move all they do is they move their mouths and don't move their animation. It's awful, I tell you, awful. And like his lip sync's off and he's not moving and so that was like a funny little animation joke.
So yeah, on the way home from the theater, Jay basically finds a stray puppy and that introduces Tiny, or aka his full name, Un Chien Andalou.
I'll call you Tiny, although your full name will be Un Chien Andalou.
After the like the 1930s art movie.
Yeah, the Salvador Dali.
And was it Luis Buñuel?
I don't remember. I think so.
Okay.
That sounds right.
But yeah, that's totally it's totally what Jay would name an actual dog.
That's what I like about The Critic. I mean, because like, what was it? Was it Al Reese and Mike? Was it Mike Reese and Al Jean? Right?
Al Jean and Mike Reese. Yeah.
So I was right. Okay, cool. I'm gonna fuck that up. I don't have the thing in front of me. I didn't want to like IMDb it like while we're talking. But they come from The Simpsons, and it was interesting. Like the creation of it was really to be the opposite of Homer, because Homer Simpson and The Simpsons in general were sort of Americana, like the sort of a Midwest or like the average nuclear family, and kind of a parody of that. Parody of sort of the Americana iconography. And so that's why like Simpsons kind of became a broader parody of American life. Originally, it was kind of just more of a regular sitcom. That's why Simpsons got better towards like the second, to their golden age years, because they were actually critiquing the entire American hypocrisies and stuff like that. And what's interesting about The Critic is The Critic was actually about more higher echelon. So his families are blue bloods. He's actually very successful. He actually has Pulitzer Prizes. Like, what's interesting about Jay Sherman is that, because when I was watching as a kid, he's always very schlubby, so I just kind of assumed he was schlubby. But and he's molded on maybe Homer only in terms of his design.
Well, I believe Jay Sherman is actually supposed to be a combination of Siskel and Ebert.
He is. He's he's balder than Gene and fatter than Ebert or something like that. Was the term they used?
Yeah, I think a big difference that kind of feeds that between The Critic and The Simpsons is just the fact that The Critic like takes place kind of in the real world. Like Jay lives in actual New York, whereas Springfield is just sort of meant to be this stand-in for like any kind of town in America.
Yeah, exactly.
That kind of gives The Critic license to kind of joke about real world issues or take on things like that.
And it's also kind of much more explicitly political.
Right.
Which because it's definitely taking cracks at the Republican, like being out of touch. And of course there's the whole 90s, like both sides are bad kind of ishness that kind of plagues 90s comedies, especially political commentary. But I think it is more biting than The Simpsons is for a lot of times. Because you had like, what was it, John Schwartzman, that was a huge libertarian, and so that obviously skews some stuff. And even though his episodes are some of the funniest, so I don't know like how much it affects it, but
I don't know. Maybe that's why we get a Ross Perot joke later in the episode.
No, there was a question. That's like what, the mid 90s, and so like the election is going to happen pretty soon. So it was like 94 the first episode, the first season.
Yeah.
94,
and Ross Perot ran for president in 92.
And then 96, yeah.
Oh, was it both? Okay.
Yes, yeah. So he was in 92. He was blamed for splitting the vote from George H.W. and getting the newcomer Bill Clinton to come in. They did it again, but Bob Dole was such a nothing candidate, and like I think honestly Bob Dole was only in the public conscious, I think, kind of because of Norm Macdonald and the Simpsons episode. because otherwise people would not remember it. He remembers Michael Dukakis for the most part. No one really knows.
But let's talk a little bit just about the fact that this episode introduces the dog character, Tiny. Because he also does not show up at all in the show after this. They just kind of forget about him.
No, he does. He's the entire... He's the dog that Jay brings in.
But I mean, in after this episode.
Oh, after this episode. Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah. I thought you meant after that scene. I'm like, wait a minute, what are you talking about? He's the whole B plot. What are you talking about?
No, so this is the final episode of season 1. Season 2, they do kind of a reset. So there's dog. There's no So I kind of view Tiny as being kind of a cousin Oliver, from the Brady Bunch. They just wanted to, I don't know, cutesy up the show a little bit. Maybe give the dog as just another source of just
wacky hijinks
hijinks and just it's an easy excuse to get a lot of cutesy kind of moments, the same reason that a sitcom would introduce a baby. Yeah, because everyone loves a baby, right?
Yeah, and that always works out. Ask the Brady Bunch. Ask Married with Children. I think Married with Children did a whole meta joke about that, actually.
Okay.
Towards later seasons, yeah. Maybe, I don't know. I know they were struggling, right? That was the whole reason why they're making those home improvement jokes and stuff. They were, because it was it had sort of a successful lead in, and then it sort of wandered wavered.
I mean, I would have to do more research on this, but I think ABC canceled The Critic before season 1 was even done airing.
Oh, that sounds right. Yeah,
because it just didn't fit. Either they hated the show, or I don't know, maybe the ratings weren't there or whatever.
But probably a mixture of both. I mean, it's sort of in a way, because there's a certain Frasier-esqueness to it, but the difference is Frasier was at least coming off of Cheers. Which I think kind of helps with that. That might have been a slow starter if I remember correctly too. I don't think that one was a big hit initially, and then I think it got it was more of a critic's favorite. And I think the Critic didn't really have necessarily that, because it was by the creators of Simpsons, but it wasn't on the same network, and it was sort of it was kind of purposely being kind of diametrically opposed to The Simpsons, ideologically and aesthetically and stuff like that in a lot of ways. So other than the acerbic humor, the absurdist humor and satirical humor there, I don't think they were as connected as maybe ABC wanted, or maybe as audiences wanted. It was definitely, it's not highbrow per se, but it's definitely more highbrow than I think The Simpsons was at the time.
Yeah. And yeah, like you were saying, the A and the B plots are just completely disconnected in this, because later Jay goes to his parents' house, and I guess he just leaves Tiny at home, we're left to assume.
Oh yeah, because he eats a burglar at one point.
Yeah,
which actually was one of my favorite jokes. It happens later in the episode, but it's I think his sister Margot comes over, right?
It's Marty. Marty is at the apartment.
Oh yeah, it's the son. Yeah, it's
doing a book report on the Fat Little Pig.
Fat Little Pig. It's
Hey, what's that? A ski mask? A grappling hook? Did Tiny eat a burglar?
Best I can figure.
Which is actually a funny, dark joke. That's one of the I actually really like. That's one of the best jokes of at least with the dog stuff, especially.
Yeah, because again, most of the jokes about Tiny are about just his voracious appetite, which I guess makes him the perfect dog for Jay. There's even that scene where both Tiny and Jay are just on all fours eating out of the refrigerator.
I think that's the first joke when he brings him to the apartment.
Oh, is that when Tiny is still a puppy?
Yeah, I think he's still a puppy, yeah. And I think he goes down there, he's ooh, it's stop eating my fridge. Yeah. And then he goes oh, wait a minute, what is this? And so he goes down and starts chewing. That's one of the Critic's fat jokes in there.
That was also something that struck me, was that the timeline of this episode is so long that Tiny starts out as a puppy, but by the end he's full grown.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, part of me is thinking the joke is he's growing fast. I assumed it wasn't that long, but you're right. I guess if she's publishing it and then getting successful and then writing a sequel, I guess it does span a few. Yeah, you're right. I didn't even think about that as I was watching it.
Yeah, that just kind of occurred to me as being kind of funny. Very few sitcom episodes have such a wide timeline.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, so Jay goes to his parents' house ostensibly to help Margot with her college applications, though that is kind of not really a major part of this episode.
Well, I think it's just to lead into Eleanor realizing her life is a sham. You're going to have my life like mine. So I guess you're describing your life.
Yeah, like she wants Margot to go to her college, have all of her experiences.
Margot, I've got it all planned. You'll gain your polish at Hackensack U, lose your virginity in a parking lot after a Dave Brubeck concert, and become a doting wife to a man who wears underwear on his head.
Mother, you just described your own life.
Oh, good Lord. What a complete waste it was.
Yeah, and then that leads to one of my favorite jokes in the episode, though. It's like, oh, you should go to here. They have a statue of your father there. And it's just a statue with, he has a banana in his ear.
Oh, classic.
And he's just like, yeah, see, the thing is, he cut back and he has a banana in his ear. And he's like, the reason that I have a banana in my ear is to make sure the monkey gets out of my head.
Yes.
And, what I love about Franklin is he seems like he's sort of a precursor to the Lowell Random, Newgrounds era, or Comstar from the Homestar Runner episodes. But no, he was great. I think he saves this episode to a certain extent, because I love Jay, but Jay is kind of a side character in this episode, and I love Duke. And Duke has probably the best lines in the show also, but he's also barely in it.
Right,
so it's like we're focusing the entire emotional journey on a character like Eleanor. It's good to have a character to balance that out in a way that's keeps it really funny, and actually it has a sort of emotional core a little bit. I mean, it shows why she cares about Franklin, because at least he's a loser and a weirdo, and you have a husband. You'll marry a man who has underwear on his head,
Right. Yeah.
And but the fact that he cares, and the fact that he's faithful to her and stuff like that. So I think that at least it sort of explains why their dynamic a little bit, which I guess maybe helps. I don't know.
Yeah.
he made those scenes work. So.
I do like that they try to kind of flesh out Eleanor and Franklin, because they have been very minor characters up to this point.
And now Eleanor, we get into the heart of the story, which is that Eleanor feels unfulfilled and that she didn't do anything with her life.
Yeah. So they kind of go through this montage of Eleanor trying to find different activities just to give her life meaning again.
Uh-huh.
I like she gets a Chippendales guy to come over and do her shopping, and as he's trying to put food away, he keeps he rips off his shirt, he plays the radio and starts dancing.
Puts oil on it.
Yeah.
My oil fell on.
I'm here to fill your pantry, Mrs. Sherman.
Fine.
Where would you like these sweet buns?
Put them on my antique bun warmer. Never mind that. Put the cans up there.
And the only thing I thought was funny. I mean, I made her a little interesting that she's not even interested. But my only question is, because right before that, she was talking to her waspy friends. So what do you do to keep yourself excited? And she says the pool boy, and her friends are like the pool boy, this, that. And then she's like, "Oh, I had a dream about Matthew McConaughey or something like that." And I actually forgot what the punchline of that joke was. I don't think I wrote that in my notes.
She says Woody Harrelson, and then oh wait, no, it was Woodrow Wilson.
Oh yeah, because she's old. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the only thing I didn't get about Chippendale episode is so I don't think she ordered that. Did her friends order that, or was that just a random occurrence?
Yeah, it kind of seems like someone maybe ordered it for her, because she is definitely not into it. She doesn't even seem to be aware of what's going on.
Yeah, she doesn't seem to be aware. That's I think she's more just kind of annoyed, why did you not put this away right? Which is kind of funny.
Pretty funny scene.
Yeah.
But then Doris,
that's my favorite lines in this story. It's so what do women your age do?
Hey, Doris, my mother's bored with her life. What do women your age do?
Die and square dance.
She has a really great line delivery on that.
Also, just quick sidebar, but I recently heard that square dancing apparently has this whole secret racist history.
Oh, surprising. I'm not surprised. Are you? Everything in America has a secret race. Like, literally, Mickey Mouse is a racist minstrel show, like, representation. Like, the idea of the big gloves and that's all based on minstrel show, like, iconography. Mickey Mouse is literally racist. Like, that's,
Well, so, Walt Disney was literally racist, too.
Yeah, so it's, everything has
But just to give, like, what I heard about square dancing was just that, like, I forget who it was, but some guy wanted square dancing to be the official dance of the United States, and he wanted it to be taught in schools and all this stuff, basically because he was trying to make sure jazz didn't become too popular.
Pretty much, yeah. It was like jazz music was really popular at the time, and it was a way to kind of counteract that retroactively, and adding the whole like Western aspect of it made it sound like it was Americana and had always been there rather than being something that was new. Yeah, so it's and it makes sense that it's something that would that Eleanor would try. I guess Jay got the idea from Doris, but
so Eleanor hosts a whole square dance night at the house.
Mm-hmm.
So that's they invite all of their rich friends and stuff, and that's where we get Ross Perot.
Yeah, and then his running mate, and then and that's when him and Franklin have like a little dance together. And,
Take your partner by the hand, strut like Daniel Moynihan. Grab your partner, do-si-do, clear the floor for Ross Perot.
Eve, I didn't win a single state. Blame it on my running mate. That's me.
I actually looked up who Ross Perot's actual running mate was in 1992. Mm-hmm. It was retired Vice Admiral James Stockdale. Mm-hmm. And if you look at a picture of him, it looks nothing like the actual cartoon they have in this episode. So I don't know if they were just making something up or what the deal was with that.
Maybe it's just bad caricature, maybe? That is kind of weird.
Yeah. They kind of do the same thing in season 2 when Duke Phillips runs for president. Mm-hmm. They manage to get, or he chooses Franklin as his vice president. So they do the vice presidential debate. So they have Al Gore, but for Bob Dole's running mate, they just have some random guy. Like, I forget what they name him, but it's not a person who exists.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Might have been too early for that, maybe.
Possibly, but then it's like, well, why would you make an episode about that?
Exactly. That's funny.
Anyway,
and there's a Ted Kennedy episode where it's like, get your pants on. It's like, I didn't come in with pants.
Oh my god! And that must be whoever does Joe Quimby's voice on The Simpsons, because it's the exact same voice.
I think it's actually Maurice LaMarche. I don't think Maurice LaMarche does Quimby in Simpsons. I think it was just, it's a very, he's a very imitatable. It's just the Boston, Massachusetts,
Yeah, and I know Quimby is basically supposed to be a parody of the Kennedys.
JFK. So I think it's more. I could be wrong, but I assume it's probably just because that's one thing. I saw a documentary on The Critic kind of recently, actually.
Oh.
And it's randomly. I don't know. But,
wait, on YouTube?
On YouTube, yeah. It's like an 11-minute thing. And it was about the making of it. I think it was a retrospective. I think it came out like in 2000s somewhere. And they were looking back on it. It actually was kind of recent because they said like 25 years ago, so it might have been actually this year, surprisingly. But they talked about how like they hired Maurice LaMarche. He's kind of a young voice actor at that point, or youngish, and so he was hired because he could do so many impressions, and they would literally just throw impressions at him. And can you do this one? Can you do this one? And so I think it's more to save money. They probably just had him just do it. And they had another guy that did like all the accent voices, which is where there's probably a lot of stereotypes on The Critic, but it's the 90s. And then she's the whole thing with etiquette, right? And that's where she shoots the gun.
Yeah. Jay gives her the idea, like, after the whole square dance is kind of a bust, he gives her the idea he's just like, well, why don't you write a book? And she likes that idea. And it's just sort of like, wait, that's how we introduce the idea of Eleanor writing a book. Jay just says it. Like, there's nothing really motivating that.
I guess that's true. It is sort of a weak
Yeah, they just pull it out of a hat. I thought that was kind of weird. But yeah, but that's how we get to that.
Yeah, so what happens after this? That's her writing it, and then he comes over, right?
Yeah, so, but I love when she first gets the idea to write the book, she gets everyone out of the house by just firing a gun in the air.
I know, you could write a book.
A book, eh? Okay, I'll write a book. Perhaps a guide to etiquette and manners. I'll start right now. Last one out gets a butt full of lead. You heard me, Teddy. Put your pants on and get out.
I didn't come with pants, and I'm not leaving with pants.
But yeah, then Jay does visit, and she's like already written her etiquette book, and that's where we get the
Whether poor people should be blasted into space.
Yes, yeah. And then we reveal that the butler Shackelford has already, or he's aware of the book, and he's like rubbing his butt.
No. What happens is she gives it to Jay. He reads it. It's like, who else have you shown this to? And he's like, oh, just my butler, you know. And it cuts to him, rubbing his butt on her plane.
and then Franklin joins in
because he doesn't know what's going on. Yeah. Which again, that's kind of funny. Talking about the class consciousness stuff. It's it's there.
They mention it. They don't really go that in depth into
deep
it.
in it. Yeah. And then and that's when she does have a funny line reading though, where she does say, "Is like, we shoot into space. We have the technology." Yeah. Like that's the issue with it. Yeah.
Oh my god. Yeah. So yeah, Jay suggests she write a different book, and
can you write a different book? Yeah.
And she gets her inspiration after seeing Jay rummaging through the fridge and singing this song about his lost candy bar or something.
Honey, yeah, sugar, where is my candy bar? I think it was a Charleston Chew. There it is, I'm gonna eat tonight.
Jay, you've just given me a wonderful idea for a children's book.
Which that's another Simpsons holdover, definitely, is the singing a song about stupid shit.
Yeah.
Which is funny, because I think that happens in real life. I don't know if that's necessarily Simpsons made that up, but I think it's the first time I've actually really seen it often in a way that like I would do or something.
Well, I mean, this show, like, Jay does have a pattern of singing a lot. He tends to sing whenever he's in a good mood.
I would wonder how much of that is like in the script Jay sings or Jay says this thing, or how much of it is just John Lovett's like improvising or like taking a scene that's just him talking and then like sing. I'd be curious to actually see how much of his influence was on it, or if it was just on the script. Sometimes that is the case, but
that would be a good question.
Because apparently he was actually chosen specifically by the writers. So he was kind of like the first choice.
Well, I think it is perfect casting.
Yeah.
Like who else could possibly be Jay Sherman?
Yeah, he sort of, because you have the snobbery, but also he's sort of likable. There's a schlubby loserness to him, so he's not necessarily like he's able to be snobby and pretentious while also being like the underdog, which is like, that's such a hard. Now that I've said that actually is kind of a hard thing that the critic actually pulls off, which I'd argue even the Frasier doesn't always pull off. You know, and I like Frasier, but I mean, I don't think it always pulls it off in the way that the critic I think does a better job of sometimes, where it's, you know, you're able to root for him and care for him, but also realize he's kind of he sometimes be a prick and sometimes be a not the best person, but so he sings, he finds him as the pig.
Yeah, so Eleanor pretty quickly writes the first draft, I guess, of her book, The Fat Little Pig. She shows it to Jay, the pig is obviously Jay Sherman, and the pig is even wearing
the same vest.
The vest that Jay wears, and I like the little animated scene.
Yeah, I was going to say that was one of my favorite parts of the episode as well. Was the two animation like parodies.
Yeah, where we go inside. We go inside the storybook, and the pig, of course, has Jay's voice, and Eleanor is
the swan.
Like, Mother Goose. I thought was what they were.
Oh yeah, that's going for. I thought it was a swan, but you're right. Probably Goose makes a lot more sense.
Mother, I'm dropping out of law school to become a film critic.
Oh, that's terrible. Just rip out my liver and whip it into a scrumptious pate.
Don't mind if I do.
So yeah, they take the book to a publisher. The publisher loves it, says he's gonna buy it, and
this actually comes to my favorite jokes. One of my favorite things, animation. Simpsons is known for doing it, but all animation does this. But because they have to create all the props themselves, and it's delightful. So the building to go into, it says delightful. It's like a skyscraper, and it says delightful children's book, a division of Scumco.
right. Oh yeah.
And apparently that he buys it, and he's like, oh, we made so much money from, I forget the author's name. It's a Dr. Seuss joke, but he says Horton hears his neighbors in bed.
Right. Yes.
And then and later on,
it's Dr. Seduce.
Okay, Dr. Seduce. Yeah, so it's Dr. Seduce, and Horton hears his neighbors in bed, and then it cuts to Franklin at one point, like, oh, it's a pop-up book.
Right.
He's reading the book. So he has the best lines. In fact, actually, we skipped a joke, actually, I think, where he's talking about, I need to help my wife.
Oh, yeah, the first home improvement thing.
I say, Wilson, my wife is terribly depressed. What do you think she should do?
Ribbit. Ribbit, ribbit. Ribbit, ribbit.
My dear, I think you should rivet. Rivet, rivet.
And it cuts to her like on a...
She goes to an actual construction
site riveting, and she's like... And it cuts like... Franklin's like, his hat's like, crazy glue, it's crazy. He's like, they're like an unfinished skyscraper building that. So that's like, but that comes in later, I think. So...
Oh, yeah, they call that back. And they do kind of a Family Guy sort of thing where they just repeat the same joke over and over and over.
Oh, Wilson, my wife is happy again. My wife, Eleanor. 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 My wife, Eleanor.
When does he go back to Wilson? Is it a while now from now, or?
So, okay. So that is, we're almost up to there actually. So the book comes out, it's an immediate hit. Jay is like out taking a walk, and like people start like making fun of him because they think he's the pig.
Yeah, that's why I was like, no, it's actually even funnier than that, because the kids on the school ground, he sees it's a big like marketing, big plushes and stuff like that. And the kids in the school bus, they stop him and they say like, "Oh, look at that little pig!" Like, I'm not this pig from the book. And then one of the kids is like, "What book?"
Yeah, they do a similar joke in the episode with the Hunchback, where the guy's like, "You've taught me someone can be ugly on the outside and beautiful on the inside." Well, I'm not the Hunch. Well, I know. You know? same kind of joke, but it works. It's really good.
Yeah, it's a classic.
So after the book is a success, Eleanor gets tons of fan mail. She says, her life is happy again. So that's when Franklin goes back to Wilson and says,
oh, it worked out. Your advice worked out, or something like that. And it's an owl now.
Yeah.
And so it's like, who? My wife, Eleanor. Who? My wife, Eleanor. And it goes on until nighttime.
Yeah, we see a time lapse, and
and so I like that joke. I think that joke's funny. Yeah. And then it cuts to, and then it becomes like an owl like graphic that transitions. And it's hard to explain in a podcast because like you have to, if you've seen Home Improvement, you know what that is.
Right, they had all those wacky transitions.
Yeah, and so this one they morphed it in as a specific reference to that. But it's like, because the whole screen morphs into like basically a owl thing, and it transitions off, which is, and it has like a music cue that's like evoking.
I didn't even put it together that part was a reference to Home Improvement.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. I don't know. I remember that. I did watch it. Like I want to pretend like I never did, but I did watch it. As a kid. I was like a little kid. I think it was like syndication at that point. But yeah, it's pretty embarrassing now. And like, yeah.
and Tim Allen is, been revealed to be just a huge a-hole.
Yeah, which sucks because of Galaxy Quest, because I love Galaxy Quest so much.
Oh, yeah.
And he's so good in it too. And he's like not good in anything else, really.
Yeah, and the whole reason he has a career is because he sold out his friends to the police.
Pretty much, yeah. So fuck him, he's a snitch.
Oh, you know what? We skipped over a scene with Tiny.
To be fair, Tiny kind of sucks. I'm not gonna lie. I mean that's harsh.
No,
but
I kind of agree. I don't even really like the way he's drawn. He just looks kind of goofy. His eyes are like too far apart.
Yeah, it's whatever. But what's the scene we skipped?
Where Jay takes Tiny to obedience school.
I'm sorry, Mr. Sherman. We only train dogs with the finest pedigrees.
I have his papers right here. See? Husky, extra large.
Mr. Sherman, did we just rip this tag off our pants?
All right, so then I believe we're up to... So after the bit with the owl, the home improvement bit, Jay is having a nightmare, like this is the Jurassic Park scene where Tiny
this is the scene
T-Rex.
where I remember this sequence also from I didn't disconnected from, but just remember. Oh, I remember this because he gets attacked by Tiny which is another weird thing that like it's not really developed that this is something he has a problem with. It's kind of like we've sort of seen because I think the burglar scene had happened at this point that we'd already mentioned. And so we'd seen him get bigger. So I think it's implied for sure. I'm not saying it's not there at all, but to all of a sudden be something he's like just completely concerned about is like right here is when he's first like really.
They don't really handle that well. Like the arc isn't really there.
Yeah, no, and because he gets attacked by Tiny as a T-Rex. Well, he's not a T-Rex. He actually looks like the dog, which is huge.
Yeah.
And so he's like, oh no, don't eat me. It's like, oh, at least put me in a better Spielberg movie. And it cuts to him like Jaws.
Which I take offense at because Jurassic Park's a great movie.
Yeah, but I can see Jay not liking it. I can see it like because it's like a CGI fest thing, and there is.
I guess
this is my little soapbox. I'm going to say, but I think to a certain extent there are people who are nostalgic and they sometimes aren't able to look past that. And I put myself. I'm like I'm over 30, so like obviously there's stuff that I like that I probably only like because I was of that age at that time. But like there's people who like love the Goonies, for instance, and I fucking think the Goonies is a garbage movie. And I think it's a garbage, objectively garbage movie. And people who like it are people who are the age of the characters at the time. And I'm not being a hypocrite because I love Space Jam, and that's a movie you have to be there's a certain like gap, like it's like 5-year gap you can be born in where that movie's okay. You're too young for it. You're like you can see obviously how bullshit and awful it is. And if you're too old for it, you're obviously like old enough and jaded enough to be, oh, this is like garbage corporate bullshit, But if you're like born from like, I don't know, like 88 to maybe like 91, and then you get old enough to watch Space Jam, like 5 to 8 years old, then you like it. I think it's the Goonies of our generation.
So are you arguing that people only like Jurassic Park because of nostalgia?
No, the opposite.
Oh.
I'm saying that sometimes people will not be able to see what's new. And sometimes be stuck in. So Jay is somebody who probably was born around the time that Jaws came out, or to be fair, maybe LG and Mike Reese are the writers in that room. Who knows? Because some of it's speaking through Jay, but some of it's Jay. I imagine is speaking, or they're using Jay as a speaking board for themselves. I imagine sometimes. And so they're not able to. The CGI is new, and it's more. Maybe it's a little more grandiose than Jaws was, but yes, I don't know. Maybe it's my own little. That's why I said my own little soapbox. It's like I do think sometimes there's people who like aren't able to look at new things and appreciate it, or sometimes like galvanize older stuff. And it's not. And I'm a guy who loves old movies. Like one of my favorite. I love Casablanca and Citizen Kane and a lot of the canonized classic films. A lot of people I know my age actually hate Citizen Kane. I don't get it. It's a good movie, but
Jay is probably like. He probably likes the original black and white King Kong, and that's like the only spectacle movie he lets himself enjoy.
Yeah, or movies he grew up with. Yeah, like he probably also hates. I'd be curious to know actually what Jay thinks about Star Wars if they ever actually canonized that actually. Because he can go either way, I think, on that one. Because I think Jaws was still an adult movie. It was PG, but it was still like it's adult relationships and stuff like that. So, but anyway, so it's a bit of a tangent. But that was just my whole thing. Is like I do hate sometimes people like the older stuff. Like one of my things I hate, for instance, is like. When people say like, "Oh, Superman should always have the Superman theme," and it's like I like the Superman theme, but it's also grandiose and kind of overblown for certain types of depictions of Superman. And it's like, well, we can grow past that, right? Like we can have different versions. We don't have to keep going back to the well to a song that I don't know. It's stuff like that where it's just like, and Goonies I think is my favorite examples of that. It's just being unable to like look past your own nostalgia, or look past like moving forward and criticisms and stuff. But
my example of that, of a movie that I think people only like because of nostalgia, and they need to admit that it's actually bad if they look at it objectively, is actually another Spielberg movie, Hook. Hook, I will go on record.
Yeah,
I will go on record as saying Hook is a terrible movie. I know people will object to that. They'll say like Rufio. I'm like, guys, come on, it's not.
Well, it's the Goonies. It's the same sort of thing because like didn't Spielberg produce Goonies? Because Richard Donner directed it. Speaking of Superman, but Richard Donner directed it. But I think Spielberg was behind the Goonies.
That's possible. I think it was an Amblin movie, maybe.
Yeah, so it might have been like Disney, like executive produced or something. But yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Because I think Hook, because I think that all these movies, including Goonies, has parts of it that obviously resonated. Like I think the effects are pretty good in Hook for especially the time. I think that Dustin Hoffman's performance is good. I think it's kind of interesting to kill Rufio. I think that is an interesting like plot spoiler alert for like, I don't know, 30-year-old movie almost at this point. Yeah. I think as a kid, that's something you don't necessarily expect. You know, especially like, so stuff like that is interesting, but yeah, I think overall it just doesn't hold together. And the things that are bad are egregiously bad, and things that are good are enough to alleviate that.
Yeah.
In my opinion, but
yeah.
We're going to get some shit for this. You hated Space Jam? Like, I love Space Jam, but I'm not going to pretend it's a good movie.
All right, so. God, where are we? Oh, okay.
So it's after the dream, yeah. So that's what we're
so we're on back to Jay's show where he's interviewing, or sorry, he's
the first
reviewing.
time we see his show too, and this is almost the 2/3 of the episode.
Oh yeah, that's
first
right.
Time this is after the second commercial break.
Yeah, where he is reviewing Barney the Dinosaur, the motion picture,
which also happened.
Oh, that's right.
Hello, and welcome to Coming Attractions. Tonight, we'll be reviewing Barney the Dinosaur, the motion picture. Just look who got $10 million to play Barney.
This is so humiliating. You don't have to lose 100 pounds to play a dinosaur? Can't even see through the eye holes on this thing.
Did you know that the Barney guy now is like the head of the sex cult?
What?
yeah. The Barney actor. I forget what the guy's name is, but yeah, the Barney actor is now like this like sex cult leader.
Wow. I don't even know what to do with that.
It's life is stranger than fiction. Well, I was going to say that I think his name is David Joyner. I think is the guy's name. I was just double checking that. But so the joke of this one is that it's Marlon Brando,
right?
Which is, I don't know. This honestly, even as I don't know if as a kid I was the same way, but I know as an older adult, this is actually probably the joke I find the least funny of The Critic, when it doesn't make a pointed critique of the film and just kind of just like, oh, it's this funny celebrity voice for this.
Yeah, it's kind of lazy because they've dunked on Marlon Brando plenty of times at this point.
Was it Mr. Belvedere? It's like Mr. Belvedere. He's the star of Mr. Belvedere. I think is one of the parodies in The Critic, and also like they already kind of did this joke because it's like, look who got paid this much money to do Barney, but they did that joke with Arnold Schwarzenegger to play Geppetto. Yeah. I don't know if we mentioned that, but Arnold Schwarzenegger plays Geppetto in the Disney parody like earlier on. So it's literally the same joke. So like, oh, we're having which that one was funny because it was commenting on overpaid actors that are not good for the roles, and like, and also people who are in the animation industry, probably that was already a problem of like, hey, look, we have voice actors who are legitimately actual voice actors, like Reese LaMarche, Billy West, Frank Welker. And then, but then having it where it's like, oh, but instead we're going to have like Kevin Bacon, or we're going to have, fucking Jason Alexander, Jason Alexander did Duckman, but we're going to have celebrity voices, like it's stunt casting. That was already sort of a thing that they were commenting on in earlier in the episode, but now it's kind of the same joke because we're in a kids movie, but we're going to have a big actor do it. And
it's also kind of funny that they would have Barney because on this show, they already have like a Barney stand-in. They have
that episode already happened.
Yeah, where we've met Humphrey the Hippo.
He has an affair with the woman in the
with the woman who plays Humphrey the Hippo. So yeah, it's weird that they would then bring in like
Yeah,
the
you could have done
actual
other
Barney.
things. I don't know. It's
Yeah.
just because I love the parodies. And one of my favorite
Oh,
ones
sure.
is the Jurassic Park 2 one, because before Jurassic Park 2 came out, which I don't consider that one that prescient, because it's like, yeah, that was going to happen. So it's like, even Barney the movie is like, that probably was going to happen at some point. But then Jurassic Park 2, and when the joke was, it was like they're too smart to get in, or they're too smart for us to get out, to not let them in, and then the Velociraptor gets a pipe. It's like, oh, we're already on a boat doing this thing, and they're commenting on the fact that it was kind of goofy how intelligent the Velociraptors were.
I mean, I think they kind of do that with the very next thing, which is the Robo-Clapper instead of RoboCop. Yeah, it's RoboCop who is like clap activated, because that was another 90s relic. The clapper, the light switch that you operate by clapping your hands.
Please, dirtbag, you're under arrest. Please don't do that.
That one's funnier because I think that one at least is absurd in a way that's like, at least if you're not gonna be clever, at least be absurd, I guess.
Okay. Yeah.
and ridiculous. I don't think it was that funny either, but I think it was funnier than just like celebrity voice and equals comedy.
Mm.
And also they're making sort of a comment on, you know, kind of what we're just talking about with Space Jam, where it's like commercials getting into movies and becoming, because Jay literally says that. It's like, oh, now we're having products in our movies, and he has like a joke that he laughs at himself about, but I forget what the joke was. But basically him in the show, on his coming attraction show, but also the cartoon, is making a point about putting like products in movies, and like, I'm not sure it's necessarily super successful at it, but at least was doing something more than the Marlon Brando joke.
So Jay's show actually gets interrupted by a bunch of, like, a herd of pigs just run through. I actually thought of the 30 to 50 feral hogs tweet that happened last year.
I still don't know the origin of that. What was that? So I've seen it. I saw a Twitter thread and stuff like that. I just don't remember like what the origin of that was.
So there was I think there was some kind of, I think like another mass shooting happened. So it started another Second
always a great
Amendment.
Start for a comedy premise. But yeah.
So that started a big, Second Amendment debate of people saying, we really need to take away the guns this time.
Mm-hmm.
And so that led to a pro Second Amendment person tweeting, well, I would love to know what all these people think I should do about the 30 to 50 feral hogs that run into where my children are playing.
Okay.
And so that just started that whole thing. Everyone was like, what?
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. That makes a lot more sense now. And then everyone's like parodying it and being like, and because it's a ridiculous thing. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah. And this is one of my favorite, at least one of the few. So Duke is in like two scenes in this episode, and he's in this scene and a scene comes later. And this is one of my favorite. He has two of my favorite lines in the episode. And this one is, he says like, "What are these? Or these are hogs." But he goes,
Just what do you call these?
Well, that there's an eating pig, that there's a snuggling pig, and that there's a pig you bring home to mama.
I just thought that was funny. I don't know. It's so random, and I love Jack Napier. Not Jack Napier. That's a Joker in the in the 1989 Batman movie.
Charles Napier.
Charles Napier. Yes, I knew it was Napier. And he's amazing in this show. But he's also an amazing actor. He's like a character actor. He was in Blues Brothers. He was one of the Western. That scene where it's like we have all kinds of bands. We have Western and country, and they're one of the country band.
I remember him most from Austin Powers.
Yeah, he's Austin Powers. He's one of the generals, the American generals. Is he only in the first one, or is he in any of the?
Oh, he might be in the sequel. I have no idea. I really only remember the first one.
He's in a lot of Jonathan Demme movies. He's in a lot of stuff. You definitely recognize him if you see him. Like his voice, I think, is perfect for Duke, but like. If I didn't know him already, I probably wouldn't have put two and two together because he looks so different than Duke. And he's such a character actor. He's not really in like big prominent like leading man roles, and so like 'cause he's like a good old boy, like fucking chiseled jaw in a way that Duke is sort of. But no, yeah. So that's and then he's doing it to cross promote because the little pig is such a big phenomenon right now.
So yeah, even Duke is getting on the fat little pig gravy train. So that kind of pushes Jay over the edge. He goes to his mom to complain.
It's probably my favorite line from Eleanor. You're probably going to say the line.
Oh, where she gets upset and she tries to cry but can't.
Mom, your book is ruining my life.
Now, Jay, you're only saying that because you resent my success. You think old women should just curl up and rot away. Oh. It's times like this that I wish I had tear ducts. Oh.
That's probably one of my favorite lines from her. So it's like that and that we have the technology are probably the two lines I think are the funniest from her. And the voice actress does a good job. I mean, her voice is funny.
Oh yeah, I love her like the kind of the sound that Eleanor makes when she is attempting to cry. The just like oh.
Oh, yeah, that's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah. Because she still manages to have that sort of like upper crust kind of accent, even when she's doing that noise.
That sort of transatlantic shit. Did you know? Yeah. By the way, did you know about transatlantic? Like old timey like movies and like in the 20s and 30s or like radio shows, like coming down now to the. Did you know that's a fake accent?
I think I remember hearing that somewhere. Yeah.
So
it was constructed for the sake of. Yeah, for movies
sounding
and radio.
upper class. It was like, it was like, well, it was sort of, what it more was, it was more, from what I remember studying it, was that it was like particular people in the New England area, like Maine and things like that. They were created to sort of be upper class American, but not necessarily British. So it's like mixture of British and American. And Hollywood adopted it in the sound era because it was the most clear and it made it sound classier.
Okay.
And that's why they adopted. So it was more of a chicken. As far as I know, I'm kind of talking my ass a little bit, so don't quote me necessarily, but from what I remember, I think it's more of a chicken the egg thing, where the accent came first, and the fact that it was clarity and had like a lot of like clear diction. It was like clear to say. And that's so it got adopted by radio and films and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. But anyway, so it was just a fun little thing. I remember as a kid being like, did people talk like that? Like, I don't remember like that kind of cartoony voice.
Yeah. So we jump from there to Jay now suddenly wants to get rid of Tiny. He's decided that, he just doesn't want him anymore. So he takes him to Lane Riche, his favorite restaurant.
Hey, Vlada. You think any of your customers could give Tiny a good home?
Why, I will gladly take her myself. Oh, the T-bone's connected to the mutloaf. The mutloaf's connected to the spot roast.
I will not let you cook my dog.
Are you suggesting I serve him raw? Oh, it would save on the electricals.
Give me that!
This is probably the most offensive joke in the sense of just like actually offensive.
Yeah, because Vlada wants to serve Tiny.
Which is like, I mean, it could be worse, but it's not great. Yeah. It's probably the most based on stereotypes. I mean, the fat stuff's not great, but again, as a fat person, I don't care that much. I don't know how you feel about it.
Well, I thought maybe they were making fun of, I don't know, like Vlada's foreignness, because like they never.
No, that's what they're doing for Vlada. I meant like for Jay Sherman, like when he's like eating like the he's like eating on all fours in his refrigerator. There's a couple other ones too.
I don't get offended by that stuff either. It's just so ridiculous and over the top. It's like Yeah, exactly. It's also like he's also the main character. It's a obviously, like, I'm not going to get mad at any like person who is bigger or feels offended by those kinds of jokes. I think that's totally fair for them too. I'm just not going to be. But yeah, the Vlada things, especially as people who are also two white guys who are just like, I don't know if I should. I don't know if I probably shouldn't laugh at this anymore. This is probably a little too offensive. So that's probably. But to be fair, for a whole episode, that's probably the only one that I would like place on that sort of board, right? Where it's kind of like, this is probably something we probably probably shouldn't do anymore. But luckily it's just that one short scene and we move on.
Pretty much, yeah.
So we go to Phillips Land. So apparently Duke Phillips, in addition to being Ted Turner, he is also Walt Disney. So he has like a whole theme park just named after himself, where they're introducing a new ride, the Ham Hawker.
Yeah, and they have like a lot of like little jokes before that. 'Cause we see all the other rides that he has, and one of them is like, like it's like the River of Love, but it's radioactive, and they come out as mutants. And I was like,
yeah,
I didn't see the connection between the two, other than the fact like lack of safety standards. But it was just like,
yeah, I don't know.
That was the joke. I'm assuming that's the joke, is lack of safety standards. But like, it doesn't really connect with love. I don't know. It seemed very like, again, not a lot of these jokes. The satire doesn't seem connected in a weird way, if that makes sense.
No, I totally agree on this one. And to me, it also felt like they were kind of dipping into Simpsons territory again, because they make so many
had
nuclear
the silo.
jokes.
They literally had the I mean, which I guess is based on regular nuclear reactors. I guess. But it's also so obviously dangerous. Like I think the funniest jokes of like rides that are bad, like you wouldn't know they're bad until you're on it. If that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, you wouldn't have people literally turning into like mutants coming out of the other end and then being like, oh, I'll go on that.
Or let's connect it thematically in some way to make some satirical point beyond just that it's dangerous.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like it seems like because if you're gonna love things, there's like a lot of jokes you can make that aren't just I don't know. Honestly, for such a funny concept, the Phillips Land, at least it seems like a ripe concept for comedy. It really didn't have that many funny jokes.
Yeah, I mean, you could set a whole episode at Phillips Land and not run out of material, but here
Pretty
it's
much,
just kind of a single. It's limited to a single scene for whatever reason. So the reason we are here at Phillips Land is for Ham Hawker the ride, and they get Eleanor to kind of introduce it. So Eleanor is there at Phillips Land to talk about the ride, and I guess, and the book and whatever, and that basically leads to the crowd kind of getting so worked up when they see Jay, they just like chase after him.
I just want you to know that all the proceeds from this ride go to the Eleanor Sherman Foundation for blasting the poor into space.
We want the pig! We want the pig! We want the pig!
There he is.
Rub his belly!
Brace him up!
Make him squeal!
He literally has a apple in his mouth, and he makes a little pig noise.
Yeah. Oh God. They chase after him. I like that Duke says, make him squeal.
He has it twice, and I think it's the same line reading too, which makes it funnier. Make him squeal. But before that, it does do the joke again, where it brings back the shooting poor people into space. That's what the charity's about.
Oh,
she's just doing a charity for to shoot people into space, shoot poor people into space, to raise money for that.
Yeah.
And that's when they chase him down, and that's what leads to the Elephant Man reference.
I am not a pig. I am a human being. And I have feelings, too. And if you think about it, I bet there's a scared, fat little pig inside each of you.
Get him for showing us the truth about ourselves!
And that finally kind of, I guess, gets through to Eleanor, where she sees now that the book is actually doing harm. So and
I did like that she came to the decision herself. Like, I think that Jay brings it up, so I'm not saying Jay didn't like bring it up, but he's not like forcing her to change. I think that she cried. He doesn't like get angry. He understands to a certain extent. Like I do like that she comes into herself. The only thing I don't want to miss up before we move on is I did like the whole. Like, oh, he's making us see the error of our ways. Get him! That's it's a very Futurama Simpsons sort of thing where it's like, oh, we had an epiphany, but actually no, that makes us more mad. Which is pretty good.
So after Eleanor kind of has this moment of realization and remorse, we just kind of fast forward to 1 month later, where Eleanor has now written a new book, and Jay finds out that the fat little pig has been killed off in this new book.
What's going on?
Eleanor Sherman is signing her new book.
Why is everyone so angry?
Haven't you heard? She killed off the fat little pig.
Good night, Porky. You made me look so dorky. They killed you in New Yorkie. I hope you rot in hell. How did he die, anyway?
He had a heart attack while singing and doing a stupid dance.
Ooh.
We again get more of Jay singing because he's so happy.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, so how did he die? Oh, he got a heart attack from dancing and singing a stupid song. Oh.
Yeah. How perfect is that?
Well, that's when he has a dog with him. And that's when he brings the dog in. And it's like, oh, what am I going to do with my life after this? And it's like, oh, actually, a cute dog. Sit. And the dog sits because he's being unruly this whole episode, I guess.
Yeah.
See, that goes back to the whole problem with this arc. It's like we didn't quite see him be unruly all the time. And I guess there's a scene where he sees him eat his dog. But it's a scene where, like, I guess we skipped over where, like, the dog had eaten his whole food. I think it's when he ate the burglar. I think it's the same scene.
Yeah, so it's like, is the dog just a glutton or is the dog disobedient? Like, yeah,
it's very muddled. But then he gives the dog, and again, I put in my notes that the A plot and the B plot finally converged in some meaningful way. Because I was watching it being like, because I've done, so I'm a writer, so I've placed in, I don't want to be like fucking humble brag, whatever. The point being is I'm a writer. I got paid to do it. But I'll leave it at that instead of listing off my fucking rewards and fucking what I worked on. But like, so I've been paid to write. And one thing I did notice was the fact that A plot and the B plot were definitely so disconnected, and the way that you usually want them to thematically kind of bounce off each other in some way, or plot-wise bounce off each other in some way. Obviously, sometimes it's impossible, but this one was pretty egregious in how isolated they were.
Yeah. Although we do get maybe my favorite just kind of throwaway gag in this scene where, after Eleanor makes Tiny sit, she says, she has a way with animals where she once taught a fish to play badminton.
I have a way with animals. I once taught a fish to play badminton. Match point floppy.
The one thing I did really like, I think I'm paraphrasing. I don't know if I actually got the exact quote, but I do like how, like, Jay's like, oh, maybe you can take care of Tiny, and that'll help you find purpose in your life, and I can get rid of Tiny because I couldn't take care of him in my own apartment.
Hey, why don't you take Tiny? He'd be happier out in the country, and he can fill your lonely days with love.
Thank you for the dog, and thank you for the glib, self-serving solution to my fragile emotional state.
You're welcome.
Okay, yeah, that line is really great because it's just like, because it is true, it really is getting at the artificiality of sitcoms and all that stuff like that, and acknowledging that. I thought that was kind of pretty cool. I mean, I guess it's still lampshading, so there's always that thing, you're doing the thing, but you're also lampshading it. Is that good enough? And there's a whole critical debate if that's valid. But I thought it's sort of a '90s show to really just like get the heart of how like actually cynical these kinds of endings actually really are.
Yeah.
I thought it was actually pretty, and still keeping it cheery. Like, it's sort of thing you can kind of pass by if you're not paying attention, but it's there, which I really liked.
Yeah.
And then it's the last scene, right, where everyone's riding their own animals.
Yeah, and we end with Jay, with this sort of meta joke where Jay says, good night, and a special good night to those tuning in for Home Improvement.
Because they're the lead into that, yeah.
Yeah.
But no, because we skipped the animals are riding though, because it begins with Margot.
Oh, right.
Because Margot's first, she's riding a pony.
Yeah,
We've seen her
Margot's a classic horse girl.
Yeah, because she in the first episode she's riding a horse. Like when she talks to the actress, right? Like that's like, so we introduce her.
I think so, and definitely in the episode with the debutante ball, Eleanor threatens to shoot the horse, which is one of the darkest moments in the whole series.
Honestly, the Critic can get pretty dark. I still like when he's tied up, Fidel Castro, and he's like, shoot to wound.
Yeah.
And then so it starts. So it's Marco with the pony or the horse, and then it's obviously the joke we're expecting, which I thought was kind of clever. We kind of knew what the joke was going to be, which is that it's going to be Eleanor riding the dog.
Yeah,
but that's the second animal instead of the third one, or instead of the button. Then it cuts to Franklin with a rhino, which is just a little random, I guess.
Yeah.
Very 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 Hamsar or. Did you ever watch Hamsar Runner?
A little bit. I mostly watched the Strong Bad emails.
No, he's from the Strong Bad emails. I am my old grandmother. Like they he. All right, and then but it ends with Jay with pigs. On a sleigh.
Pulling a sleigh.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, pulling a sled or a sleigh, and then that's when he says the good night. Home improvement. I think it does a transition thing that we were talking about earlier. I think, if I remember correctly.
I don't know. I don't remember. To be
I don't
honest.
remember either. It doesn't really matter. Yeah. Point being is that's where it ends, and that's I actually didn't know this was the season finale. I only watched this episode. I was actually kind of busy this week, so I obviously watched the episode and got notes for this podcast, but I didn't really watch the episodes before or after. So I actually didn't know this is the season finale. It's just kind of a weak season finale. I'm not gonna lie. On top of being like not the best episode, it's also kind of like nothing really big. I don't know. It seems kind of weird for a season finale.
No, it's true. It is a very weird note to kind of end a whole season on. But I think again, like I think I don't know if maybe because animation takes so long to produce. I don't know if they had like already made this or if they like had already heard that ABC hated their show, so they just kind of lost their passion for it and they just wanted to poop out an episode or something. I don't really know what the story is. But yeah,
and to be fair, if they pooped out an episode and it's this good, I mean, it's better than it's better than most animated shows. Definitely, like especially now if you're thinking like the Fox animated. Well, I mean, I like Bob's Burgers, so I think not all episodes.
Oh, Bob's Burgers is great.
But I was trying to make it like a more generalized point. But like, no, I guess Bob's Burgers is alright. But like any Family Guy stuff, I remember me and my girlfriend were actually watching like Family Guy. I think we were just like hanging out and like it was on TV in the background. And it was just on like Adult Swim, and like it was just crazy how unfunny that show is. And it goes. It's speaking of like talking about stereotypes and talking about all this stuff. Like as bad as The Critic can be, and even old Simpsons or like that. Like the restaurant owner scene where he's trying to eat the dog, or like threatening to eat the dog. Like that kind of stuff is like mild compared to what's happening now, and it's like not because of. Again, PC culture.
So yeah, I think we've thoroughly covered this episode of The Critic.
For sure.
Yeah, that is going to bring to a close season 1 of The Critic and season 1 of this podcast, I guess.
Oh, like the last episode of the season?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Cool.
Yeah,
special.
So I've decided I'm actually going to go on a little bit of a hiatus before we start tackling season 2. Because I've been thinking a lot about this. I actually want to take this podcast in a little bit of a different direction. We're still going to talk all about The Critic, of course, but let's just say I have kind of big plans. I'm going to start just doing more segments. I'm going to get more guests. I just want this podcast to be as great as it can be. So
awesome.
So yeah, I'm going to take some time to prepare all of that.
That's awesome. It sounds exciting.
Yeah. So tell a friend, tune in, keep listening. So yeah, Damion, thank you again for joining me on this episode.
Yeah, it didn't stink.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that a joke somebody said already? I haven't listened to all the episodes.
I'm pretty sure I've used that a few times.
Oh no.
Do you have any plugs you want the audience to know about?
Yeah. So if you want to see my writings, just go to Air on the Head, and you'll see like I've done I do news reports there, but also we looked up best horror movie you've never seen or best horror movie you never saw. Under JoBlo videos, horror videos, you'll see like stuff I've done videos on things like Dead Calm, Frailty. I just did one on a one called 100 Feet that by Eric Red. So there's like it takes like horror movies you haven't seen before and like editing them together and doing stuff like that. And I also finished a feature film. Speaking of Madeline actually executive produced it. Covering Champions. I just released a trailer. We're in the post production, so hoping to get that done by the end of the year. So that's kind of what I've been working on. It's a feature I wrote, directed, and produced and edited and all that stuff like that, and self-financed. So.
Excellent.
Yeah, so looking forward to that.
And sorry, what was the name of it again?
Reunion of Champions.
All right. Yeah, so keep an eye out for Reunion of Champions. Check out Damion on JoBlo.com. Because, yeah, a lot of those horror movies, I've seen some of those, and they're really cool. Like Frailty, I'm a big fan of.
Society is also the one I really liked.
Okay, I don't know that one.
You should watch Society. That's one I did a video on, and it's. I almost don't know if you should watch the video yet. You should watch the movie first because they'll spoil it.
All right.
These do spoil the movie, so because they're comprehensive. So, but,
all right, I'll have to check out that movie then.
Yeah.
Cool. So, yeah, that's going to do it for us here. But thank you all for listening to It Stinks, the Critic podcast. Thank you for listening to this episode of It Stinks, the Critic podcast. I'm your host, Brian Rubinow. Our theme song is by Brandon Beck. You can email the podcast at itstinkspod@gmail.com and find us on Twitter and Instagram at itstinckspod.